This episode is sponsored by Turn Gymnastics Apparel, the brand dedicated solely to the sport of men's gymnastics. Choose Turn this season to outfit your team with industry-leading design concepts and elevated options for elite performance. Get the design process started today. Visit turn-gymnastics.com to discover the latest possibilities. Turn. Never done perfecting. Thank you, Turn, for supporting the Sam Oldham podcast. Supporting Turn helps us bring you new content every single week from the world of gymnastics. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Sam Oldham podcast. In 2012 at the London Olympic Games, Daniel Purvis was part of the men's gymnastics team that took bronze and made history winning the first team medal in a century. Between 2010 and 2018, Dan won a total of 16 major championship medals for Great Britain and Team Scotland. On many occasions, his incredibly consistent performances at the very highest level played a key role in the success of the British men's gymnastics team, which included World Championship silver in 2015 and European gold in 2012. And this is his story. Dan, it's great to have you here, mate.
Cheers, buddy. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited, man. Like, the last time we spent a good amount of time together was Josh Champion Stag Do.
Yeah.
And after that 3 days, I was like, we have to get down on the podcast, because I was just so incredibly impressed with the insight, the stories. I don't think your story's been told many times, particularly since you've been retired in the last few years. So before we get into all of that, Dan, just tell everybody at home, what does your life look like at the moment?
Yeah, well, things have changed since being an athlete, but it's all good, to be honest, mate. Very grateful, very lucky. Started running my own gymnastics club back end of 2016. So that's been 7 years now. Really good in a sports hall. So it's purely recreational. Got a great team of coaches. Family business as well. Mum and dad help massively. So yeah, really good fun. What else is going on? I still do a bit of coaching in Southport. That's really good. So I've got a couple of young boys there, competitive.
Is
so it's a good
Jeff
mix.
still there? Jeff still running things?
No, Jeff's not there now. So it's another lad called Jacob, who's an ex-comp squad as well. Gymnast, so he's sort of taken over now. Jeff's happily retired. Still catch up with him, go to Wetherspoons now and again. You know, it's good. And then apart from that, mate, just...
You still doing some of the schoolwork?
Yeah. I work for Sports Champions, so, you know, it's hand in hand, working with kids, doing assemblies, doing a bit of gymnastics still, but you've got to keep yourself in shape. You do a handstand, you risk it, you know what I mean? You do a backflip in the assembly hall. Getting on now, 34, so, you know, still keep myself fitness, mainly for that.
Yeah, I have the same thing, mate. I turn up to a school and I start doing stretches for 5 minutes before all I've got to do is a handstand and a back somersault. But I'm always like, especially the first one of the school year, I'm like, can I still do it? There's a moment where I'm like, can I do this?
Oh, you realise as well when you take the mats away to school. I used to do it when I was younger, like no problem on a dance floor or something. But you know, now my knees, I'm like, give me that mat, give me that extra padding. Cause
do you enjoy it, Dan? The schoolwork and the recreational club that you've set up. Do you enjoy working with kids and in gymnastics? And was it a conscious decision not to go down the elite path in terms of your coaching?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I sort of fell into it. I mean, I've always enjoyed working with kids. Even when I was training, you know, I'd always be sort of the older one, especially when I was the senior gymnast in Southport. So hoping the young kids, have a laugh with them in my group. Me and Frank, sort of, you know, really good mates and that, helping each other. But also, we had a lot of gymnasts underneath us. So Jeff would have the senior boys, when the senior could be like me or Frank's age.
Okay.
And like be 9, 10, 11-year-olds, you know. So it was a good mix there.
Right.
So I think as well, after the back end of 2016, starting my own gymnastic business, I did think to myself, I enjoy working with kids, I love helping them, inspire them, but I'm not a gymnastic coach, so I need to get my level 1. Eventually my level 2, so I did that, and then sort of just found my passion for the sport, doing it for recreational, and it's a good mix from the pressure of elite gymnastics to just helping kids come in and enjoy the world of it. And then from that as well, I think it was a year later, joined Sports Champions, and that's been great, a little bit different, get to go and do my gymnastics, get to speak to the kids, try and inspire them, and especially when it's primary school, you know, you just dream big, you know, and you see the face light up and do some jokes as well. It's really good. So for me, it's, you know, I sort of found my purpose through that. The elite pathway, I did start that after I retired in, I think, 2018. Went to Liddershore, that was great. Worked with under Port Hall, national coach, Barry Colley. Josh Champion was there as well, so got a bit of mentorship, and that was fantastic. Up until the COVID, really. And then unfortunately COVID happened and never really got back into doing the elite pathway. But there was a couple of different scenarios I was thinking I could have gone down. But I think for me, I've really found that passion of recreational gymnastics.
So you don't think you would potentially in the future go back down that traditional route, maybe into the elite pathway, or you're just keeping that quite open?
Keeping it quite open for now. I mean, I'm quite busy with my own club. There's pressures on that, just keeping the classes full, keeping the coaches happy and coming and training up the new coaches. Just, trying to make it as big as I can and hopefully expand that. And the more I expand from maybe 3 days a week to 6 days a week one day, that's pretty much all my time there. But if I could ever get in a situation where I had a premises and I could do recreational and maybe a small group of boys squad or girls squad, fantastic. But I've got that mix in Southport as well. I coach there 1 day a week. So, I do a bit of competitive coaching there, which is a good mix.
Dan, what are your biggest challenges as a business owner in the world of gymnastics when you're setting up your own club? What are the biggest challenges you face doing that? I've started doing something somewhat similar myself, and it's difficult getting it off the ground. Like, it's really hard, and I think you have to build up that credibility. I imagine, given that you do it in the area that you grew up in, people maybe know you locally as being Dan Purvis, the gymnast that went to London 2012. It gives you a slight head start, right? Because you have that credibility that you are an incredibly successful elite gymnast that competed at an Olympic Games, has an Olympic medal. But what are those challenges when you're getting started yourself that might hold some people, not hold some people back, but potentially stop someone from making that leap and taking that risk of starting their own gymnastics club or their own sports club?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I'm very lucky, first of all, to have mum and dad who I'm really close with that have just backed me to the hills. So when I went into it, the idea was actually taken from Ricky Brooks, who's Jeff Brooks' son, who was the old manager of Southport Gymnastics Club.
Okay.
Now, he, near that time, I think maybe 2015, sort of, he set up his own gymnastic business and, he loved it. And I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going to sort of do. I remember 2016 thinking that's probably, that was my last opportunity to make Olympics. That's probably when my name was going to be the highest. Now I'm not going to be making any more Olympics. So let's set up this business. So me and mum and dad went and met Ricky and Jeff, and he just told me pretty much his setup, how he runs it all, which I really appreciate to this day. So the idea was really to try and get equipment next. Now I had money from all the World Cup circuits and things that I'd done that I've been saving up. So I actually bought the gymnastic equipment from a lady called Janet, who run it in a school sports hall. Right. Oh, sorry, no, it was a leisure hall. So pretty much bought her equipment. And then from there, I mean, gymnastics is such a popular sport, as you know. Yeah. It was the year of the Olympics. So I think the security of kids coming in was great. Okay. It was all the other bits. Yeah. Getting insured, getting a qualified level 2, which we had an ex friend of mine and teammate, sorry, but still a friend of mine. But yeah, Craig Noel, he was at Southport Gymnastics Club, so he came, stepped up for us. That was for a couple of years. And then building up coaches that I've still got to this day. Yeah. So I think the main thing's having that support network, getting coaches. Yeah. I think the kids will come as long as you make the classes good, make it fun, make it interactive. I always say to the coaches, it's not elite gymnastics, it's everybody. It's paid good money to be here. Everyone gets the same experience, and just make it fun. Make it fun for the kids. And I think if you can do that, that's the fun bit. The classes, the setting ups, the more the stressful bits, the badges, make sure everyone's got a good badge, the right badges, making sure the parents are happy, that sort of thing, as you know yourself, mate. But I think once you get a good pool of people around you, support, everyone's got each other's backs, then, it can, where it is now is really good, but it's taken a couple of years to get to that stage. So probably the hardest thing for me, if I didn't have the money from gymnastics, I wouldn't have been able to
get going in the first place.
So that's a big one. Yeah. People have got different situations, but that for me was the crux of it. And then obviously I had great advice from Ricky Brooks. And then sort of base it from there. And like I say, I'm very lucky. I get my dad a nice bottle of whiskey at Christmas because he does a lot of the admin work, a lot of that stuff. And I get to do the fun bit and turn up and coach. So, like I say, very lucky, and it's sort of, in the right place.
Amazing. So was that your experience getting into gymnastics, Dan? Was it that? Was it that recreational side? Was it having an amazing, fun experience? Was that how you got into the sport, or was it different to that?
Yeah, I think so. Like a lot of people listen to podcasts quite a lot, and a lot of gymnasts very similar, very hyperactive. Got into it through recreational means, but before that, to be honest, my brother was a really good footballer. Okay. And I was probably 7, when I got into gymnastics. But I would go to my brother's football games, and I just was not interested in football. But being from Liverpool, that was the biggest thing. Who you're going to play for, Liverpool, Everton, especially back into the 90s. But I'd be, in my own little world. He'd be playing on the field. I'd be climbing up a tree, getting a stick, turning out a sword, just in my own little world.
Yeah.
But I didn't have my belonging yet. So when I went into gymnastics, that was for me, oh my goodness, I found my niche,
Yeah.
but I was hyper, I was running around, found it really hard to sit still, be attentive, and especially in the rec. So when I got into the boys competition squad after probably a year, well, no, probably less than that, probably about 6 months or something, it was like, wow, this is really where I want to be at. And in Southport as well, they have the Christmas displays. So when I was a rec gymnast, I'd see the boys squad on the floor, and as a youngster, I just wanted to be part of that team, part of that unit. And as soon as I got the opportunity, I just loved it.
Yeah. And who was your first coach, Dan, and how quickly did your relationship with Jeff begin?
So my first coach was Arthur Masters. So he's, well, to this day, he's a fantastic coach. He's retired now, but he's really good with youngsters, being patient with them, and especially like me, who's very hyperactive, very struggled to really understand technical knowledge. So he'll break a lot of skills down for me. I was in a group of older gymnasts, not too much older, maybe like 10 and I was 8. So that was good. So they were ahead of me. So I was trying to catch them all the time. And I was probably there for 2 years with Arthur, learning the basics of gymnastics. But the whole squad, especially on a Friday, I remember, there would be a line-up and Jeff would do that bit. So all the handstand walks, all those sorts of skills across the floor, things like that. So it was like, got a bit of every coach, but he was sort of my main coach for the first 2-3 years, and then went into Jeff's squad, and that was sort of like, that Jeff's the best coach, so you want to be in that squad, and if he likes you and can see ability, then you're going to work hard for Jeff. So that was sort of, for me, how I got really into understanding the more competitive side, not just turning up and doing gymnastics. He would say to me, Dan, we want to try and get on the national programme. Got the NDPs coming up, things like that. So that's when the next sort of step, it's not just for fun anymore. It's right, it's click now.
Did you like that? Did you like the competitive side of it?
I did. I was pretty terrified of competition, like we all were. I imagine at that age. But, to be honest, I just loved the training.
But nothing ever stopped you going to the gym? You'd always go to training?
Always go to the gym. A lot of conversations, mum and dad back and forth in the car, if I was scared of a skill. If he had blisters, didn't want to go to the gym. It's sacrifice. I remember I had to give up, scouts on a Friday. I was devastated. And Jeff was like, scouts, what are you on about, Purvis? I was like, I love it. And then, so that was a big indicator, right, this is what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
But, it sounds weird to say, but it wasn't like I was great at other things at that age. So I wasn't one of those kids that had a lot of different talents. So it wasn't like swimming, football, that wasn't it for me. So when I found gymnastics, I was like, right, this is what I want to do. And if I want to keep doing gymnastics, I need to do competitions. And then slowly doing Northwest competitions, getting onto the national, what was the program?
The World Class Start program.
World Class Start, what a throw, World Class Start program. Getting onto that when I was thinking I was 11. That's really when it opened up for me, and then going to Liverpool for training camps. And
And how, back then, Dan, in those first few years, and even when you're starting to work with Jeff and you're doing the NDPs and you're thinking about getting on a national programme, how did you view yourself as a young kid, but also as a gymnast? And what I mean by that, Dan, is that from a very early age, I kind of felt that I wasn't the most talented and I had to work really hard. So I kind of stuck with that narrative for the whole of my career. And it's interesting now, looking back, I go, oh, wow, maybe that wasn't actually accurate, but that's influenced a lot of, in many ways, my success, but also maybe some of the obstacles that I've faced in my career. How can you remember how you viewed yourself as an athlete and a young kid back then?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I really struggled with confidence. We go way back, so I'm sure, you could tell I was quite shy as well, introverted growing up. But especially when I was a youngster, it was very difficult for Jeff to get the best out of me in training, especially if he would just say my body language. If I had something wrong in school that day or whatever, it would really affect me. If I had bad competition, that was it. I'd say I'm rubbish. And I'd never want to quit, but it very, negatively impact me, so Jeff would always have to build me up.
Right. And was he good at doing that from a very young
He was
age?
fantastic, obviously tough, because, you have to be tough, but also he would never let me leave the gym feeling down. You say, right, we'll get back on this tomorrow, don't worry, that skill didn't go to plan, that routine didn't go to plan. Doesn't matter. It's another day tomorrow, it's a fresh chapter. And I remember especially NDP days, I wasn't really getting. I think Trevor Lowe had a magazine, and I remember the likes
The Gymnast magazine.
The Gymnast magazine. I remember the likes of Charlie Hayes, great gymnast, Aaron Darby, great junior. Obviously, that Daniel Keaton's, and it took me a while to start getting sort of noticed,
recognised.
Yeah, and I think that affected me as well. But it makes sense. I wasn't, at that level. But I would take things like that quite hard. But also it spurred me on, motivated me to be like, right, I want to get acknowledgement, I want to get recognition. And to be honest, I just sort of stayed in my lane, just kept doing my gymnastics, kept working hard. I didn't think I was the most talented at all. But Daniel Keaton's, I used to just look at him and be like, that's the gymnast I want to be. And then I remember like NDP's, British Championships and Northwest Opens, they would have that song and it's simply the best. And I'd be sat there, Keaton's getting like 10 gold medals. And I was like, how am I ever going to catch this kid? There's no way. But looking back, I needed that, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And he's gone.
And would you come back in the gym hungry then after those?
Absolutely hungry, just like, come on, this is like, and Jeff would be as well, so that spurred him on.
Yeah.
And it was a good teamwork there, just like, right, let's just get the new skills. I mean, we were fortunate to have Neil Burton, who would be able to come down. I think he was the national coach for a bit.
Yeah, so I think, he was so I remember, Dan, and actually my first experience of meeting you, Dan, was at a world-class start camp. I'd just made the squad. Yeah. I think I was about 8 or 9, and you would have been about 11 or 12. And we go to Little Shaw, and we line up in a big line, and Neil Burton says, right, I want you to line up in the order of the least good looking to the best good looking. And I was like, what's going on? This is so odd. And I was the youngest on the squad, so I just thought, right, hierarchy, I'll go to the bottom. And he went, Dan Purvis, you get to the bottom. And he just walked off, and I just thought, oh, what prick this guy
my
is.
confidence wasn't great.
Yeah, and he put you right, and I went right next to you, because I was like, well, I'm the youngest, so I'll go next to him. And then at the top, you got like Lewis, and then all of the older guys putting themselves at the top. And that was the first time I met you. And then the second time I met you was at the Glasgow training camp. Can you remember when we used to go to Glasgow?
Yeah.
And you had a cast on.
Yeah.
You had feathers, I think.
Yeah,
you tried to dye your hair black and it had gone purple. And I just remember you on the parallel bars or on the high bar doing like a stoop and just constantly smacking your heels with the cast on the bar and thinking, why is this guy he's not stopping? He keeps going. And that was the first time like I'd ever met you. Yeah. At that age, do you feel, because you were a bit different and you stood out, and I also remember at that Glasgow camp, like being taken around to meet everybody, like in the rooms where everyone, and we walked into your room and Christian was on the bed just chilling, and you and Aaron Darby were jumping around pretending to be Pokemon. And I was like, that's the first time I'd met Dan Purvis. So I was like, wow, this is wild.
I should do that now.
And so that was like my first experience of meeting you. So you were a big character, but it felt like there were people took easy shots at you quite a lot. But did that have an impact on you when you were younger? Or did that make you, okay, right, well, I'm going to show you with my gymnastics?
Yeah, I think like you say, like definitely through the gymnastics. I think that was the only way I could prove myself.
Like express yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going to show you my gymnastics. So I think that's why as well, I'd really take it to heart if I had a bad session or a bad competition, because I wasn't going to openly say things. It was had to come from my gymnastics. Like I say, I was going to mention, I was going to say some nice things about Neil Burton, but then he did some bad of it. He used to come down and help me and Jeff. And, Jeff, he ran the whole boys squad and the girls squad at times, so he couldn't get away. And, it's like as a coach, it's different techniques, especially it wasn't like you could just watch YouTube and find what's this kid doing on Kachev and how can break it down. So it was tough for Jeff. And, I was learning the skills, but maybe with bad habits as well. So when Neil came, that was really good. That really helped us. And in terms of literature, I remember as well, Daniela. I love Daniela, but she did not like me as a kid. Not like didn't like me as a person, just because I was so scruffy. Okay, especially NDPs. Like I can't get my legs up here.
And just for everybody listening, when we were younger, Daniela was a choreographer that we used to have to do ballet training with, essentially.
Oh yeah. I shouldn't say she doesn't like me. We're friends, but she did say years later. She said, I ripped Dan off to Jeff, and I apologise because But I don't blame it, because I just couldn't do all the elegant stuff.
Was it that style, or was it the coordination at times in some ways, or because you must have had some talent, Dan. Like I feel like you're giving yourself a disservice here, because even when you were smacking your legs on the P-bars with Severs, you were doing difficult gymnastics. I remember you on parallel bars doing Diamondovs and Stutz, and I was looking at it like, wow, this guy is very good. He's very talented. You always worked really hard.
Yeah, well, I think I was naturally quite strong, quite fast. For me, it was just my stretching.
Okay.
Especially as as a young gymnast. It's splits, it's bridges, handstand shapes, all that sort of thing. So I think progressively I got better when it was more of the harder skills. And it took a while. You have to go through that period, don't you? I mean, the pressure of the NDPs, you want to be national champion, things like that. So eventually it got there. I just had to stick at it.
Yeah.
And I'd stick at it for the love of the sport. And it wasn't just coming to the squad, enjoying being with my friends and working hard. It was the confidence it gave me going into school, feeling like, okay, well, this is my identity as a gymnast on the British squad. I mean, that was, for me, one of the biggest things in my career, getting that letter and then reading it to mum and dad. They probably opened it before, but saying, mum and dad, got into the squad. And it was such a big thing. So, it was all these sorts of things that gave me confidence to thinking, okay, maybe I can start being a better gymnast. But to my wildest dreams, I wouldn't have thought I could go to something like the Olympic Games or World Championships, European Championships until later on.
Yeah. And what role did gymnastics play in your life, Dan, as as a young teenager and you're going to secondary school? Like, what kind of role did it play? Was it something that kind of, for some people it keeps them in line, stops them maybe getting into trouble? For other people it's like their outlet. What kind of role did it play for you in your life? Like, how important was it?
I think it just gave me a massive sense of direction. I didn't know really like many youngsters don't, know what they want to do, but gymnastics sort of forced me to be fully in the gym. My outlet was a lot of my school friends, so we would do totally different things. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Beyblades, all those sort of things. So when I was out the gym, I was able to not really focus on gym, which I think helped me. When I was in the gym, it was intense. So I think as well, what really helped was just, like I say, the confidence it gave me. And like, I knew if I was going to ever quit gymnastics, it wouldn't be because I didn't love it. It would just maybe be for injury and things, but you try and not think of those things. You just try and turn up for the sessions, do your best and go home.
It's interesting that you had that sentiment already as a kid, Dan, that if you didn't do gymnastics, you didn't know what you were going to do, and you've kind of alluded to that a few times, because I remember you saying that once you were kind of towards the end of your career at times, like mid-late 20s, I remember you saying things like, if I didn't do gymnastics, I'd work in McDonald's. I used to think, that's no way. There's no way you can be that good at such a difficult sport. But it kind of alluded to that self-confidence. Just tell me then about when things began to shift in the system itself, Dan, and there was a changeover of personnel. Andre comes in, Eddie comes in, Sergey comes in, and there's a real massive shift around that time in expectations. What was that like to be around? Because you were in and amongst that first group, I would say, of like yourself, Christian, Lewis, Dan Keatons, Aaron Darby. You guys were kind of like that first group that almost there was some pressure, not some pressure, but I think a little bit of expectation, because we had a real talented group in that world-class start camp group. If you think back to it, nearly all of our generation came from that squad, right? And we all did incredibly well. So for all of us to have made it through, I think we probably were in some ways just a very talented group that it just all kind of worked. But just tell me, about that big shift and being part of that and what it felt like to be in amongst that, because I think the expectations were lifted, right? Up until that point, we just experienced the GB men's team finishing in 23rd at the World Championships. No one went to the Olympics. But then for the young guys, it was kind of like we want to be competitive. We want to be a great nation in terms of competing in gymnastics.
Yeah, I think it was an amazing time to be a part of. And I think as well, I'm not saying Great Britain were rock bottom, but it was tough. It's going to be tough to get back from the 20-something in the world, isn't it? So I think it was just everyone was on board. Personal coaches were on board. Gymnasts were all hungry for it. We're all pushing each other. I think as well, when was the change of point for me was probably Volos, when I got selected for the Europeans for that. That was absolutely massive. I remember the training there, some funny stories from Greece. 10 days, first training camp away, first Europeans away. But it just gave me so much experience. And what you need to do to really gear towards a big European Championships, how many routines, the numbers, being ready. I remember it was a control comp and I was on, pommels. So they've gone round, I think Paul and Andre, Andre Popov, sort of forgot about me. And they say, where's Dan? He's on the pommel. Right, Dan, put your hand up, you can do your routine. And I just did it. I remember Paul laughing, going, I can't believe you did it. Like, I was just very prepared, and that filled me with confidence going in to Volos. And that was an amazing experience. But when I got to the European Championships and I was looking around at all the other gymnasts, I was just so intimidated, mate. And I remember just losing a lot of skills on the day. And looking back on it, it's always because it's just a nerve-wracking thing.
Yeah.
The actual competition the planning went amazing.
Yeah.
Come
You
away,
guys finished fourth, right?
Finished fourth, yeah, historic fourth position.
Yeah.
And I think as well that gave us confidence then going into the next Europeans, which you were part of. And then actually in the programme, mate, I think there was just so many of us pushing each other. You know, it's Dan Keating sort of at the leader of the pack. Then remember Ivan.
Yeah.
Came from Russia, and he was an incredible gymnast. Like Aaron Darby, obviously Christian Thomas, Lewis Smith, the older Luke Fowler, like the older generation as well. And then yourselves coming through, trying to catch us up, and it was just a massive, you know, it felt like a good team building. And you know yourself, like we used to do things like play man hunt, you know, do rounders, all those sorts of things. So I think as well, it was just boys being boys, and then the gymnastics on top of that. And I think then obviously we had great leadership.
Yeah.
That knew the targets of the meetings and what we're trying to build. And obviously when Lewis got his medal in Beijing, that was like a massive confidence boost for everyone. Like, wow, we can do this. And personally, that gave funding so I could, well, a lot of us go to Liddershall, but I was there for, you know, centralised for 7 years.
But when did that begin, Dan? When did that centralisation begin for you?
So that was after, 2008, when we got a historic gold medal for the team.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think that was year 11. So I'd left school.
Okay.
The Olympics happened. Lewis had got his medal. And then the funding, I think, came through that. And then it was me and Theo Seeger that he offered to go down and do centralised training. And it was great. You know, it's in Southport, they don't have like U-pits, things like that. We've got pits and things, but for chucking new vaults, new dismounts, things, I don't know about you, but those pits where they just... you know, a cover, it is quite daunting. So when I'd go to Liddershall, I'd be like, I can chuck myself in a pit and be fine, all that sort of thing. So that was really good. Obviously, the hours increased. Andre, you know, it was incredible. He's been an incredible coach to me throughout my career. And I'm so lucky that he took a liking to me, that he wanted to, like, he saw potential in me. Invest his time, yeah. And he was very driven. You know, he is a national coach, but, you know, I was seeing him as a personal coach, and him and Jeff had a really good relationship as well. So, a lot of things, a lot of combinations, and also I think that was leaving year 11 was like, right, well, this is it now, no going back, you know. Hopefully it was a make or break, so just give it everything I had.
And tell me a little bit, Dan, just about what it was like being centralised at that time. Yourself, Theo, Christian, to an extent. Christian obviously still lived at home. Just tell people about the amount of training you guys did, because I think one thing that the younger generation below us suffered from was not seeing the work you guys had put in when they were that age.
Right.
Because I think they were maybe, by that time, you were competing at the highest level already. You were well-seasoned senior gymnasts, and the hours had dropped a little bit. But I remember you guys doing 7 hours, 8 hours. There'd be times you'd be in the gym... We were doing 3 sessions at times.
Yeah.
I remember going to Liddershall, having to run down that driveway, do a session, go to breakfast, do a session, have lunch, do a session. Like, just tell us about what that was like and how quickly did you improve during that time?
Oh, mate, well, it was wet. Once you knew you were going to Liddershall, that was it. You pack your bags on the Sunday, you get ready for Monday morning, because it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, training regular gym at home, you don't have 6 hours in the gym, really. Or I didn't anyway, it was pretty much after school. So that was a big change, going from a morning session 9:30 till 12:30, maybe even 1, having 2 hour break, and then 3:30 till 6, like you say, maybe sometimes 7. Andre, when he took a liking to me as well, I'd be in even longer, you know, shaping me, doing different preps, doing different skills, all these sorts of things. So sometimes it's 7-8 hours a day. It was massive, but the improvement skyrocketed. But it's hard to see the improvements when you're waking up.
Yeah.
It's sheer pain. Going to the canteen, going up the stairs to Liddershall. Yeah. But of course, you know, the results came through all that hard work. And as well as that, you know, when we had the national squads, it was great. It was like a holiday, like, because it was me, Christian, Theo mainly, and then you boys would all come, and it was like, oh, great, because you get used to it. You know, you get used to that isolation training, which is difficult. I remember me and Theo used to say to each other, "We've got no Wi-Fi this week. What are we going to do?"
Because back then there'd be no Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi, different rooms all the time, no like mini fridges. And quite often I was quite lazy, not going to breakfast. So sometimes I wouldn't eat and just get ready for 9:20 line up and be like, oh, I've got to do like routines this morning. So yeah, it was tough, you know, but it was what you did. You didn't know anymore. Anything else really. That was just a system. And as well, having Christian, that was funny because Christian was able to go back. So he would get the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
which was really good. So yeah, it was it all worked out, but it was tough. Yeah.
What role did you all play in that little three? Yourself, Theo, Christian. What kind of roles did you guys play in terms of, that training when you're isolated down there can be hard, man. Like
Yeah.
I never spent as much time as you guys, but I've done it. I've done it in periods, and it's tough. It can be really mentally draining. How important is it having somebody else that's in there with you, trying to achieve the same thing and making you feel like you're working together to do this?
Yeah, well, I think us three are very, very close. Like we are as a squad, but I think as well because of the isolation and it's quiet at the show. It's a big gym, it's not much going on in the day. So we just bounce off each other, We'd always be cracking jokes. That was a massive thing, like having humour in the gym. And especially in tough routine days or hot days or struggling days, it wasn't always pretty. So it was just, we'd always go around the same pieces together, it wasn't isolated as such.
Did you feel like almost like your own little team? And you were kind of trying, not that you were trying to beat everybody else, but you were trying to let's get all three of us on the team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know
Because we
what
would
you
do the
mean.
same in
Yeah,
Loughborough
yeah.
as well. Like,
Yeah.
me and Sam would be like, come on, let's work together, because you kind of need to rely on
You do,
people
yeah.
when you're going
You
through
do.
those really tough days, don't you? Look, when you're doing a 7 or 8 hour session, you've got another one the next day, and you've got to do routines.
Yeah. Well, it's nothing but respect, for all gymnasts and what we went through, and you want everyone to just do the best of their ability. But like you say, when you work with those gymnasts day in, day out,
You're part of their story, aren't you?
of course, and you can see how much they put in personally. So, we went on a couple of teams together, which is great. 2009 Worlds, we're all together. Europeans, maybe 2011, we're all together. So, that was great. I think for me and Frank, he's like a brother to me. I really wanted to be on the team with him as well, moving forward a couple of years later. But yeah, like I say, it's just how much effort we've all put in over the years. You just want everyone to get something out of it and just get the opportunity to show the best gymnastics. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's when you work so closely with someone, you do sort of form, slightly different teams. And like I say, when we were all together, that was like, oh yes, all the boys back together, Tell
me about that run, Dan, from 2010. So Europeans 2010.
Yeah.
All the way, I know you competed in 2009 at the Europeans, but 2010 all the way to 2012, which was an incredible run.
Yeah.
You went on a great run. You became, one of the, if not the key member of the team in terms of a lot of the time being put up to do almost 6 apparatus in team final situations. And that consistency that you become very well known for, where do you think that came from, that ability to just consistently deliver under pressure, and that success in those 2 years? What do you put a lot of that down to, Dan?
Well, we've touched on the training, definitely, and realising that for me, because it was 2009, I think Europeans did as a senior. And I remember doing a Markelov, and this was, I think I finished 7th or something in the all-round final. Keaton's got a silver. I remember I was that nervous, I bent my legs. And I was like, I can't believe I've done that. I did my routine. And then after that, I just felt a bit embarrassed. And I was like, just for me personally, I was like, if I want to be at this level, it doesn't matter about nerves. I've just got to go for it. And what's going to get me through that is the numbers. So I remember just doing twice as many routines going forwards. I watched Christian and Keaton's do amazing in the London World Championships. It was the iconic Keaton silver medal, Christian all round 5th. And for me, that was just my absolute dream, having any of those sort of results. So then going into 2010, I worked really hard back with Jeff and Andre, just thinking of the new routines, trying to construct those routines. I remember there was a couple of things, like my rollout with straight legs, trying to stand out, those sorts of things. Going to the Europeans in Birmingham, that was a home game, so that was really good exposure. We got a historic team, I think Team Silver. Team Silver, I mean, Russia went there. It's crazy with the ash. Oh, no, that's
the volcano.
The volcano. Absolute madness. And then, I got an individual bronze medal on floor with Marcel. So, like I started at the beginning, it took me a while to find my feet and find my confidence. So, results like that was like, okay, eye-opening, right? Okay, maybe I've got what it takes, to compete at the highest level. Then going into Rotterdam World Championships, I mean, that was for me the key moment where I thought, right, that's really, I feel on top of one of the best gymnasts in the world now. And I mean, what a crazy experience that was. Were you the reserve?
I was reserve.
You were reserve,
yeah.
So we had a lot of conversations out there. And a great World Championships. Like I said, for me, just getting in that all-round final and maybe maybe replicating what Christian and Keaton's did the year before. That was the dream. Unfortunately, Keaton's was injured. But it was a great team. And I remember we got a historic
fourth in qualification.
Oh my goodness, seventh in the final. So, but that was a big shock. When we got into that final, I think we were all a bit flustered. I think it's just a big thing. 3 up 3 the count.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of eyes on us. You know, qualifying fourth is a bit of a shock. But great experience. So yeah, the qualifications, the team final, then the all-round final. And all the time I just think it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. You know, mistakes are going to happen. I've just got to focus on my routines, and if I'm a clean all-round gymnast, then hopefully I can get a good result. But I never would have thought that I would have finished 5th. And for me, when I touched on Christian doing it the year before, I was like, I've done it. I'm one of the best. Like, I can see it with my own eyes now. And that gave me a lot of confidence going into the floor final, getting a bronze medal for floor. And it all just came together. And then, through that, I thought, okay, right, I've established myself as a senior gymnast now that can compete with some of the best gymnasts in the world. So, that for me going forwards was really what gave me confidence to the rest of the cycle.
It's really interesting, Dan. When I was preparing for this conversation, I've known you from a very young age, and it's an incredible career that you've had. And one of the things that I came across is that, so we've had 5 individual junior European all-around champions, back to back, between the years 2008 to 2016. We had 5 European all-around medalists, so silver or bronze medalists. So 5 champions, 5 medalists. One of them's done 2, so that was Niall, who got a gold and also got a silver in 2012. Took the gold in 2014. So the guys that won the gold medals have gone on to win 22 major championships medals. But the guys that won the silver or bronze have gone on to have 42, so double. And I wanted to just ask you, Dan, like, how do you feel about I'm not saying that you weren't a massive standout junior, but do you feel like potentially you've spoke about having that hunger of wanting to prove yourself and wanting to get to where Dan Keaton's was or Christian was? Do you think that played a key role? That plays a key role in maybe not being the best guy from a young age, but being very close and having that hunger. Do you think that almost sometimes actually helps you go on to have a longer career maybe? And having that pressure on you at such a young age, being the best guy and lots of media attention, sometimes that can be quite a lot for people to handle.
Yeah, mate. I mean, that's a mad statistic, that. That's so
and
cool.
I'm not taking anything away from the guys that have gone on to win, and then 22 major champion is incredible, but double is quite wow. When I came across that, I was like, that's quite incredible, actually.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, Jeff's always said to me, as a youngster, you always want to be the chaser. So I was always chasing Keaton's. For Keaton, it must have been hard because he was just a talent. He was ahead of the game. So he was aiming against, I guess, the best in the world, thinking about the Olympics more so, where that wasn't even a thought process for me. I'm just thinking about the next comp, teaching myself resilience. And I mean, for me, that changed when I started to get more success and more pressure, and I felt that, and I did, I look back at it thinking, I'm glad I wasn't that superstar as a junior, because I would have struggled massively with the media attention. But I was able to just keep my head down and just train. And then when I got older and started getting more recognition, sponsorships, things like that on TV, I was able to cope with it pretty well, I think. But as a junior, it's tough. But I think as well, maybe if you are the superstar and things, you're probably pushing skills that are, massive, absolutely massive. Like, my skills weren't massive as a junior, so it probably helped my body. And then when I was a senior, that creep up slowly developed me. So that could be another reason as well. I mean, I'm pretty lucky. Jeff always says I'm like chitty chitty bang bang and Frank's a Ferrari, in terms of body. He's like, he's just like, he looks like an Adonis, doesn't he? But unfortunately Frank, he'd had some injuries and he'd break down, and Jeff just said, my body as well just can keep going. So that's been a super strength for me, being able just to keep in the gym and do the hours. So I mean, everyone's individual, but I think for me, if you can be a chaser, or even if you are that best gymnast, Great Britain have got a lot of them, which is fantastic. Look at what internationals are doing. Always try and find someone that's
a level above
and chase them. And that's going to improve your gymnastics massively.
I always felt like I was happiest when I was chasing someone. And I found it harder when maybe I was in the gym and there wasn't somebody I could chase anymore. Because I could easily work out, he's doing 10, I'll do 11. That was quite easy for me to do, but then it became more difficult as I got older. And maybe some of the older guys that I would train with in Loughborough started to retire, and then all of a sudden I'm on my own, and it becomes quite tough then. Just tell me a bit about 2011, Dan, that Tokyo World Championships. We don't need to go into it in depth, because we've kind of gone over that with with Christian and Lewis when they've been on the podcast before, but just tell me, coming back to that, how you were able to, under pressure, consistently deliver and be that guy we were relying on at that World Championships. In amongst everything going wrong for everybody else, you still performed incredibly well and just missed out on an all-around medal at the World Championships and finished 4th, improving from the year before, right? Yeah. So just tell me about that. And when you were going into competitions, Dan, and you were about to put your hand up and you're standing on the pommel horse, from the outside, everybody's got so much confidence in you hitting your routine. What was going on inside your head in those moments?
Yeah, I mean, 2011, it's the big focus for me really individually was trying to get onto that podium. I mean, Rotterdam, when I finished 5th, filled me with confidence. And then going into 2011, you know, the main priority was the team. But as you know, in gymnastics, it's a team competition, but you feel like an individual. So Jeff would always say to me, look, you're doing it as an individual. And if you can think about that and do the best of your ability, that's going to help the team. You know, so that was really good. So I wasn't really, as much as I see mistakes happening, I knew like that's not going to help my gymnastics. I just need to think solely on what I can do, and that'll help the team. So I think, that's how I was able to keep my head during the team final when things are going on. And then individual, definitely I felt the pressure, but I felt ready. Like I felt ready, starting on floor. And if I get through that and get through pommel, okay, I should give myself a good chance. But like I say, I've always just had that thought of clean routines, you know, try not to put anything wrong. And I think for me, just not really looking at the scores either, not thinking about the overall medals, just thinking about my best gymnastics I could do sort of thing. That helps you just keep. And I always think to myself as well before I put my arm up, I am just I think a lot of people imagine I'm just in the competition, the training gym. But yeah, when you're doing it, it is, again, you go back to those numbers. So when you're nervous and you can't even remember putting your arm up, it's muscle memory. And I think that's a massive thing. All the hours, all the training. And like knowing as well, you can do a skill 9 times out of 10. Like I would really put skills in that I thought, I'm not quite ready for that. Like I used to be obsessed with getting Coleman into my bar routine because I never felt like a true all-rounder because especially when I do World Cups, I normally finish on high bar. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't do, you know, the bigger skills like yourself and Uchimura. And I was desperate to get that. But, you know, I was catching it 2 out of 10 maybe, you know, it just wasn't ready. So, you know, being clever about what I put in my routines, because under pressure, you know, sometimes I make this analogy, I could be now, do a straight jump and land it. If there was 1,000 people watching me, I'll be thinking, oh my goodness, and that's, you know, nothing. So just consistent training. And I knew that I'd done all that work. And then going around the competition, it was more pressure then. When I could see by P-bars almost there, and then bars, doing my routine. Philip Boyd did the routine of his life, which was incredible, but then it knocked me in the second. And Yamamura as well, he was Japanese, got the got the bronze. But, you know, it was...
what a competition. I still think of that as the greatest competition I think I've seen live in terms of the performance from Ochimura in that all around. Like, I've never seen a crowd give someone a standing ovation. Like, I've never seen that before or since. Like, it was an amazing thing to witness. You know, for me being a gymnastics fan, I was like, oh my God. And to see my teammates competing in something like that. For me at that time, I'm dreaming of being you. You know, I'm like, one day I could be in an all-around final like that. So incredible achievement, mate. And that came off the back of your all-around bronze at the Europeans in 2011 as well that year. Dan, what do you think happened between the time of that World Championships in 2011 and then the issues you started to have? And this is quite topical with Simone Biles. The twisting issues you started to have in those few months afterwards. Just tell us a little bit about that and how difficult it was to manage that.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you bring that up because I've been watching the Simone Biles Netflix show with Ellie, and I was trying to explain to her about the twisting problem.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to explain to somebody, isn't it? Really
difficult. I had to show the video. There's a video of me doing it from the European team final. But going back to that, I mean, I don't know if it was a case of just overtraining. Like I already knew my routines.
Being exhausted, fatigued.
Mentally. I mean, I remember the day it happened. So it was the build-up for the European Championships. I'm on the fast track at Lily Shore. I go for my takeoff, my hand slips, and I go sideways. So I didn't twist like intentionally, but it was my body that did it. But in my head, I was just going for my normal one. But once that happened, the fear crept in.
Okay.
I didn't think anything of it. Went back to Southport. I purposely didn't put a mat in from the double pike Arabian. And this for me, this was one of the skills that stood me out. So I was like, this is, you know, I need to keep this skill. Anyway, onto my side, I hit myself just like, whoa, what's going on? I was like, I've had these head problems. I can't stop thinking about it. So it was really horrible. And then the more pressure added onto that didn't help. And obviously we're going into the European Championships. I'm coming on the back of being 4th in the world. We've had a great test event, so we've qualified for Olympics. I was like, I can't show weakness. I don't want my teammates to worry. I don't want the national coaches to worry about this, but I'm really struggling with it. And you know what, for the life of me, I don't know why I didn't just try and change my tumble, which I eventually did. I just don't think there was enough time.
Yeah.
So being in, I think it was in Montpellier, and the training gym, I used to go into the pit, do my double pike Arabian, be fine, come back onto the floor and do a half twist. But that was a crazy European Championships. And you know, my iconic fall onto the judge. That was during that competition where I've already got the head problems.
Yeah.
The night before the qualification, I've had food poisoning, and I feel so sorry, Christian, because I must have kept him up all night.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. Eating something dodgy, whatever. So I was sick all night. We were first up in the qualifications. So it was like 7 a.m. I remember getting to the bus, had to run off the bus, throw up, get there. Chris, the doctor, had to inject me something to stop me from being sick. And yeah, I think I was up on vault. I can't remember if I was first or second, but for the life of me, again, I don't know why someone didn't say, just do a double twist. Yeah. Do a double. I mean, I won't be going viral on YouTube if I did. But 2.5 and my legs just went. And then knowing that I had to do the rest of the pieces, I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to... And again, it goes back to the numbers, you know. And I remember Jeff used to tell me when I was younger, like, it doesn't matter if you're ill, if you're poorly, if you're injured, you've just got to do it. You've got to do it. So, you know, all that toughness, it helped, you know, because you could imagine, like, it's just sick as a dog doing it. Managed to go around cleanly, but when it came to floor, I wasn't even thinking about my twisting problem. I was just thinking, I've just got to
get through
survive.
This.
I might land on my head. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I did that fine.
Yeah.
But then 2 days later, when I think I was first up on floor, for the team final, which a lot of pressure to try and beat Russia going into the Olympics. Yeah, it was on heights. And all I can think is the more pressure you put on yourself and the intense competition, the worse those twisting problems get. Yeah. And I just ran. I just ran and I did a full in back out. Somehow landed it. All the lads at the side was like, yeah, carry on. And then I remember double Arabian at the end, I just walked into it. I just walked and just took this fall and just thought, right.
How frightening is that?
So
having
scary,
to do that
mate.
under that kind of pressure as well.
So scary, mate. And all I could think, I try to explain to people, it's like, I don't know if you're into horror films or anything like that. Okay. But you know when like you like a demon's like possessed you, that's what it is like. It's like a twisting demon.
You just can't control it.
And that's so scary when you just rely on your body in gymnastics for so much. Spatial awareness, under pressure, everything. So I lost trust, to be honest, in myself for that time, and that was scary. So then going back after the European Championships, which was a great success, you know, we got a team gold medal, which is fantastic, but mentally I was thinking for the Olympics, what am I going to do? Yeah. A couple months left. I had to make the decision with Jeff and Andre to change my first and my last one was a handspring double pike and handspring double tuck. Fortunately that went to plan. It was tougher endurance-wise. That's pretty much how I got over it.
Tell me then, Dan, about your experience at the Olympic Games in London, what that was like, what you remember from that team final, what are the key moments that stick out for you, and do you look back at it with fond memories?
Oh, mate, I'd tell everyone, and especially when I'm doing schools, that was the best, happiest competition in my life. Like, it was just incredible. And, mate, you know, the whole experience, I mean, how hard it was was we in Montpellier again? We were doing the training camp in France.
We were in Arc.
Yeah. So we were in Arc, and that was tough. That was some of the equipment as well. Quite hard. So then going into the village after that pre-camp, I think we all felt really ready. Yeah. I think so. That was good. And it's just such a great experience. And to this day, it's like we got free things. It like you could walk into the food hall, everything's free. You go out, you could say whatever the sponsor was, and just see all the other athletes. And it was really hard to stay in that bubble because we're all so used to European Championships, World Championships as gymnasts. Yeah. You know, unless you've had experience as a youngster, maybe doing Youth Olympic Games and things, but it's the first time for me. Well, I did Youth Olympic Games, but other than that, really, to be at a high multi-sport event, because I hadn't done a Commonwealth Games before 2012. So, the whole experience was fantastic. And I think, I don't know about you, but I think getting the gymnastics done early was a good thing before we saw the media sort of, wow, this is how intense it was. And to be honest, mate, to this day, I've got mixed reviews, and, you know, people really close to me I've talked to about this. Back at home, you know, if I've been down about it or whatever. it was a mixed games for me because the qualification, I fell last on pommel. And I was shocked. I just felt so ready, fell on my wheel. I was never really a big fan of that skill. But I was going into that thinking, okay, 5th in Rotterdam, 4th in Tokyo. Could this be it? And I think I just got in my head too much.
Okay.
Obviously at the back of the twisting problems, maybe things like that. Just maybe lacking a bit of confidence. But I felt ready.
Yeah.
And then I was first man up on the pommel. And I thought, I've just got to do my job. I've just got to stay on. I just believe so much that Max and Lewis would hit their routine. So falling off in the qualification is the last thing I did. So it was tough. And it's like I've mentioned before, sometimes you put your hand up. I can't remember that routine. So the numbers got me through that. And then I was able to relax a bit. I mean, I think fortunately as well, I was doing all 6 apparatus.
Yeah.
Which was what I was used to for the team. And then obviously iconic moments. I remember on rings, when we watched it back over the lockdown, and then we all talked about it, and I think you took a step on landing.
We all took big steps on landings,
yeah.
didn't
And
we?
I'm like,
Massive
did we
steps.
chalk the rings? I don't know what it was.
It's almost like we were slipping off on those dismounts, but we were all taking big.
Consistent.
I think that was nerves, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was a lot of nerves.
I think so.
It was a big thing. I think, if I think back to the time, I felt like everybody else seems really relaxed. But having chatted to everybody since, they weren't. They were just not showing it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, mate, 100%.
Yeah, and I think if I'd have been a little bit older, a bit more mature and experienced, what would have been great for me was I should have just said, hey mate, I'm really nervous, like
yeah,
can you help me a bit? And someone would have been like, oh, don't worry, I'm feeling the same now. Would have calmed me down quite a bit.
We
But
were also
I was so
young.
scared of showing that I'm nervous because I didn't want to put anyone else off. Do you know what I mean? But what a competition, and to compete on 6 pieces, mate. What a big job that is,
Like I say, I think that worked for me because I was so used to. I think I would have found it harder doing what
coming in and
yourselves
out.
done in and out. Yeah, I mean it's a different thing, especially for you. You're an all-rounder as well, massively. So that was, I think I got fortunate to do that, and I think that helped throughout towards the end. Obviously, Christian's vault, incredible. I think you had the best P-bar score, fantastic. And then going on to bars, and then I know you've talked about this. I think you did absolutely incredible. What you did, because I was first up. You had your fall and then you got up, you just focused and did an incredible routine, and your score was still absolutely massive, which was amazing. How high level your routine was. And then Christian obviously did his routine. So it's like going into that final, for me, I'm glad it worked out like that because it was like, right, that's it. It's make or break because it was all so close. And I do often think about how it would have worked out if you would have stayed on and we would have been higher, if I would have got the performance, because that for me, that floor routine I did was a performance of a lifetime, but I don't know if I would have got that. And that's what it is about the team, isn't it?
I think as I got older, mate, the one thing that it sounds silly, but the one thing that really helped me start to process that and almost give myself a bit of a break was that I realised that the greatest gymnast of all time, Kohei Uchimura, fell 4 times at the Olympic Games, I was like, well, if the greatest gymnast of all time can fall 4 times, then it's okay if I did it 19 under that pressure, do you know what I mean? But I maybe you're right. And I also, in the years that went by, I thought, well, maybe if I'd have had a perfect day, somebody else wouldn't.
That's
do you know what I mean? So you just can't, and I am proud of myself now, like looking back, that I was able to keep calm, get up, because I've watched the games in the last week and seen people in those situations fall again, and how hard it is. And I clearly remember switching fast and going, calm down, breathe. And I think it was that experience the year before in 2011 in Tokyo that enabled me to be able to do that. But I'm not sure how I did it at 19. I can remember chucking my hands up saying, calm down, it's going to be okay, just breathe one skill at a time. And then luckily for me, it worked out the rest of that routine. But you guys, I think Chris, then going up under that pressure and hitting that routine was massive. And that probably gave you guys the confidence, we're still in this, let's go. And just incredible. What did it feel like when your feet hit the floor down and you landed that last tumble?
I was so, just relief, just like...
I think people find it hard to understand when quite often athletes describe it as pure relief, like just relief.
Just relief. That was pretty much that was it. Because I remember thinking, oh my goodness, but it wasn't. I think as well because we were going into the last piece, we had to give it everything. I wasn't thinking, oh, I need to stick it. I might not land on my feet. I was thinking, right, I'm going to do this routine. It's, to be honest, there's not many times that I've been able to put my hand up and think I'm guaranteed to do this routine. I just felt so confident at that moment to do it. But that finish on handspring double tuck, I was struggling with that in arc. It's different than the Arabian.
Yeah, it's rock solid, wasn't it, that floor in arc?
My goodness. So I think that, I must have landed on my bum so many times compared to, when I got onto the Olympic floor. So, that was such a relief. And then obviously Christian doing his routine was fantastic. And I had so much, I'm sure we all did, confidence in Christian, and seeing him working for years and years, day in, day out with him. I was like, he's got this. And then like, it was nuts, wasn't it? Because we were in silver.
Yeah. And it still was a silver, man. That dismount was not a dismount.
It was impressive. It was impressive.
No way is it a dismount. I don't care what anyone says.
No, but remember the
watch
crowd.
That back. Yeah.
We were just like,
crowd going mad, yeah.
Mate, it was
it was like being part of a film, wasn't it? It was so crazy.
When
like
you look back on it.
out-of-body experience. Like, just an amazing thing,
mate,
to be a part of.
Oh, mate. And did you feel the same? Sorry, after it, I felt like I can enjoy the atmosphere now.
Yeah.
Because I was so nervous walking out.
Oh, mate.
I couldn't really enjoy. I know people say that was the best thing for me.
No, it was tough.
That was one of the
felt
worst.
like I was
so
walking.
nervous.
I felt like I was walking to the guillotine.
I
was so like,
so much pressure.
And especially obviously after Highbury, I just thought, that's it. I've cost my country the first Olympic medal in 100 years. Like, that's gonna. Do you know what I mean? Because you do at that time at 19. That's what you do. But I mean, it
all worked out.
I just feel like Christian saved my life, basically. But Dan, just tell me, just because we've had the Americans have just gone and won a bronze medal in the team event at the Olympic Games, it's just taken place in Paris, right? And the media attention and how much you have to do in terms of going to the BBC studios, the ITV, the Sky News. You're talking to everybody for 2 days afterwards.
Yeah.
What role did that play then in the all-around final, going into the all-round final? How difficult was it to, then going into that all-round final? And do you think it was just the combination of everything from that Tokyo experience, the pressure, having to make the test event and the twisting issues, and then winning the medal, the extreme high, then trying to get yourself ready for the all-round? Was it just a bit too much, do you think?
I think so. I think, I don't blame anyone, because we had to capitalise on, wow, we've just got a historic team bronze medal.
I don't think people really thought about, right, we've still got to compete.
Yeah, still got that. Was it.
We've done that. It's done. It's never going to get any better than this.
It's done. Because I don't know what time we got in, 2 a.m, but caffeined up from the competition. I mean, the highest of highs.
Yeah.
And then, I think a day or two later to settle down and go and do the competition. I think, to be honest with you, I was pretty mentally exhausted. I think I remember I sent Jeff a text in ARC saying, I don't know how much longer I can keep up this regime, because I felt ready to be, because so the British Championships that year, I felt really good. And that was after European, so fixed my twisting problem. I already felt like I've almost peaked. I just need a little bit more, and I think it just went a little bit long for me. So when I got to the games, obviously having my fall on pulmonary convocation, managed to put it together for the team final, going into the all round and thinking, this is my last opportunity. I knew I'd never get this opportunity again, probably not in the next cycle, to really be up for that third place. I think just put too much pressure on myself. But the thing was, it was going well. I mean, Christian was on floor, so he finished, I can't remember if he, but certainly in the top 8. I was on pommel. So it was a great experience doing it in the team final. Pommel went well, rings went well, vault went well. P-bar, me on the semi-full, fell over the top. I've never done that in training. I felt gone the other way. And I think maybe, to this day, I don't know. And that's one of the things that I find hard, and I've just had to sort of, over the years, just forgive myself and just watch that. It's sport.
Sometimes you zig when you should have zagged,
Mate, it's sport, it's the pressure, it's everything else. And when I look at, the mistakes, I don't know if we talk about the Olympics, this Olympics, because I know we might talk about that later on, but mistakes happen and you can't beat yourself up. But to this day, it's still one of those like gripes. Like, finishing 4th in Tokyo, I can accept that because I hit all my routines. But just having a mistake in the all round, it was tough. And then I remember being down, I was sharing with Christian. Jeff came up to support me, so he had a couple of days later, because he came with Southport Gymnastics Club's great community. A lot of the coaches came down as well. I just felt like I let a lot of people down. And then I remember Christian saying to me, Dan, we've got an Olympic bronze medal. Could you imagine coming into these games thinking we're going to go away with a medal?
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, you're right, mate. Yeah, so that was a good change to me. And I was like, and then no one, to be honest, mate, no one talked about my all-round, really. And then when I got back to Southport, no one talked about it either. So it was just sort of on me, and I felt, okay, well, I've got my demons to fight going into the next cycle, but at least, I can put this to bed, and I did my job, and I'd much rather have gone clean for the team, obviously, than individual. So, it all went the way it went. And
you go into that next cycle, Dan, obviously with Rio 2016 coming up. Just tell me a bit about the amount of competitions you were doing between 2010 to 2013, 2014, even 2015, you were still competing in like the American Cup. Just all of those competitions you were doing.
Yeah.
Was that always a personal choice? What drove that? Do you think that played a big role in the consistency? Do you think potentially that played a role in maybe your longevity in the sport? Because it was it was probably only Oleg Vanayev doing more competitions than you, right?
Yeah.
Just tell me a little bit about that. And was that always like a conscious decision to do all of those competitions? Or was it driven sometimes by other things?
Yeah, I mean, I think me and Andre worked very closely together, and I think 2010 went on to the World Circuit, got that experience. Then again in 2011. Then again in 2012. And then I just think it kept going. I mean, obviously you have to qualify in the top 8 to get onto that World Cup circuit or be close or thereabout. So I think it was just a given sort of that I'd keep doing that. And I think as well, I never really spoke my mind in terms of longevity, things like that. I would just go along with whatever it was. I know Andre really wanted me to do it. Jeff wanted me to do it as well. Great exposure unless I was injured. Now, there's only one American Cup I did, and I had an injury. That was 2012. Yeah. Bust my finger, and I still went, and I just wish I would have been strong enough to say, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Because it didn't go well, obviously. But no, apart from that, the only thing was after 2012, I think mentally as well, I hadn't really got over the all-round problem, and I was still doing the same routines because the code hadn't changed then. So then going into 2013, it was tough for me to start to change my routines, and I had to for the code, for my own head as well, make things fresh. So the first part of 2013, after doing the World Cups, even though I think I might have won the all-round World Cup that started in 2012, because you obviously have your 4 competitions, and the winner of those points wins a trophy at the end. So that was great. But then going into the Europeans in 2013, I just wasn't ready. I just didn't have the routines there. So that was tough. And then that summer was great. Back to Liddershore, doing a lot of training, back with Jeff. Just brainstorming, like it was fun again. You know, the pressure was there to do new skills. As you know, mate, I think gymnastics is part of the fun is doing new stuff and being like, I can still do it. And then reinventing myself for the World Championships that year, which went really well. And then I'm guessing I went back onto the circuit. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved it. It was tough, going to airports. I was on my own a lot as well. So it was nice. I know we did the American one together. It was so much better when I was with you boys. But I did a lot on my own. But with Andre as well. I'm proud of it. But it's tough. But again, I think it did help that consistency and putting my arm under pressure. And I remember when I say to myself, I never got picked for a World Cup. The Glasgow one, that was such a big one. I remember Kai Jackson doing it when I was a kid, and Darren Gerrard. And it took me a while to get selected for one of them. And I thought, now I'm going to regular World Cups. Let's just keep it going.
Yeah, you almost can't turn it down.
Can't turn it down,
because you don't know when your next opportunity is going to come. I think that's one thing being a gymnast. I remember somebody said once, as soon as you step off a podium, you've got a target on your back straight away. You're like, if you're the gold medalist, you're the gold medalist for those 2 minutes you're stood on the podium. As soon as you step down, there's people coming for you straight away.
It's a pressure point.
Yeah, that's kind of how gymnastics works, right? Or sport in general. Let's talk a little bit then, Dan, the lead up to the 2016 Olympic Games. Tell me a bit about obviously the Commonwealth Games in 2014 was a great year for you again. Did you notice any differences, Dan, going into that cycle from the cycle before in terms of just the team and the structure? And for me, I felt like leading into 2012, there was a very clear direction. And post 2012, maybe wasn't so much of a clear, right, this is our goal as a team, this is what we're going to do. It felt to me like it wasn't as concrete as it was going into 2012. Did you notice that?
Certainly before, I think pretty strongly after 2014. There was a big change going into the Nanning World Championships, then Glasgow, then obviously Olympic year. It was tense in the gym, and like you say, like towards 2012, and I think because we couldn't imagine. I don't know if we could when we were there to get a bronze medal. I think the night before we thought we could do it, but the lead up to that, it was a dream, wasn't it? Where the more success we were getting as a team, the more pressure, the more things did change. 2014, I think another home games in Glasgow. Obviously, being a Scottish athlete, it was phenomenal. It was a great competition. To be honest, I had ups and downs there. It went well in the end. Jeff picked me up after the all-round final. Again, didn't go to plan, but Keaton's did fantastic. And then as a team, we got a historic medal with Frank Baines, Alan Cox, Liam Davey. So it was, it was a great feeling, but I wasn't doing my best gymnastics. So then when I did the apparatus finals, much better, and that gave me confidence then going into the World Championships. But I remember a conversation Keaton's had, and this was with me, and it was coaches speaking at the bar. Obviously, I won't name any names or anything like that. But they're already talking about what the team's going to be, for Rio. And I mean, probably these conversations happen every cycle, but I thought, well, at a bar and over parents overhead, and then that really affected Keaton's. I was sort of able to just think of my own thing. Yeah. Think of, well, I just do my job. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, conversations were happening. Obviously, Nanning was still good. Max as well. I think, he what a career he's had. Certainly, I think he was chasing me. From probably 2009, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. Competing with yourself as well for spots in the team. And then after the 2012, when he got his bronze medal, I don't know, but he was a different gymnast going into 2013, and he was the leader then. Yeah. So I was chasing him. So that was, for me, quite hard to get my head around. And I was like, right, okay, well, I'm sort of in second now. Yeah. Oh, okay, I've got yourself coming up. I've got now Wilson coming up. I've got Frank coming. So it was a battle of not just with myself and my routines, it was a battle with the other gymnasts again. Okay. So that was a big mix. But, taught me resilience, to be honest. It was a tough cycle. But the World Championships, Nanning, and especially Glasgow, fantastic, really good. I was really happy. There was ups and downs throughout, training and things like that. And I think that was it's hard to peak every time. I did so many competitions, World Cups, trials, Bundesligas, and then Europeans, obviously. But for me, I'd always get, normally, the longer the year went on, the more consistent my gymnastics got. And especially Glasgow, I was so happy with my performance there. And we got historic team silver. That I've in really good stead mentally and physically going in to Rio Olympics. And as well as that, the experience of competing under pressure. Yeah. Like we talked about in Rotterdam, being in the team final first time, way over our heads, but then being up for a medal in Glasgow in 2015. Was like, okay, that's a different thing when you know you've got to try and get that medal, and we all knew it. Yeah. And it teaches you how to really deliver under pressure. And
you had an amazing year, Dan, in 2015. European bronze medalist all around. You go into the World Championships. I think you finished in 7th in the all around. Is that right? Yeah, 7th all around. Qualify for the floor final. Finish 5th. So at that point in October 2015, you must think, right, I've got a good shot making the Olympic team now. 6 months, it's a long time, things can change, but I've just been part of a team that's won a historic silver medal at the World Championships. What happened in between that time from Worlds that year to the Olympic trials then in 2016?
Yeah, well, I had a bit of a break. I don't think I even did the Glasgow. So the Glasgow World Cup, for whatever reason, it's normally in sort of October, December time, so that was pushed to later on the next year in 2016. So yeah, competed there. And that was good, Normally Christmas, I used to struggle a bit because I had too many beers, too many mince pies, that sort of thing. For January, go to Cancun, I was hitting the ground running, but I really took it seriously. I was like, this is the last Olympic shot I'm going to get. So, to be honest, throughout the year, I felt fresh. And I know we all had conversations with Eddie, at Lilleshore, on saying targets and things. I remember his target to me was, if you can just keep this consistency, keep scoring what you're scoring, I have no issue putting you into the team. So, for me, I was like, okay, well, it's back to really just focusing, not what everyone else is doing, focusing on my own routines, consistency, and like I say, I was full of confidence being top 8 in the world again. Did the European Championships after the Glasgow Games. It was okay. It wasn't my greatest performances, but certainly, no major errors. Russia, obviously, like 2012, we were trying to beat Russia, but I mean, that Russian team was just
incredible,
phenomenal. And obviously to go on to go gold in 2016. So it was a tough ask, but I was pretty happy with that performance. But I don't know, there's something weird, like something really strange happened. I don't know to this day if it was right or wrong, but I remember we all watched each other's routines when we got back to Lilleshore, and some of my routines of qualification weren't my best ones.
Is this from the Europeans?
This is from the Europeans, sorry. Okay. Yeah, and it was in front of everyone. I remember after it thinking, why have they only put my worst routines on? Why have they not shown my best ones? And I asked Eddie the question. He said, well, it's so everyone can see the deductions, things like that. And I was like, fair enough, I understand that.
So they didn't play all of your routines?
No.
And is that just from a qualification?
It was a mix, yes.
A mixture of routines from
the Europeans, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and I was like, fair enough, doing it for
everyone. Did they do that for everybody?
I can't remember. Okay. I can't remember, but I just remember asking, but you didn't just put my better routine that I did in the you know what I mean? Yeah. So I was like, that was just me personally. I just felt a little bit embarrassed in front of everyone. Yeah. But I was like, fair enough. Anyway, carry on focusing. British Championships went well that year. Finished second behind Max. It was good. Yeah, I mean, I had my routines nailed down that I wanted to do. And then going into that little short trial, I think that's the best gymnastics I've done that cycle, to be honest. Hit everything. Some of my weaknesses were not keeping my legs together on pommel horse, did that. Nailed my vault, had my cuts and people. So it was good. And then yourself, mate, you were, I think I was second, you were ahead of me, weren't you? You were.
Yeah, I think that trial, I finished first in that trial.
Yeah.
In the first one. So then going into, and were you second in that trial?
So I was second, yeah.
So going into that, and I look back now, mate, and the biggest mistake we made was not putting those scores on the internet. No one ever saw those scores.
No.
So nobody saw that I scored 89.9 and you scored 89.5 maybe around that.
Yeah.
So no one saw that.
No.
So all they ever saw was a second trial.
Yeah.
So we did that trial. Obviously, you said you did best performance of the cycle, and you go into that second trial confident going into the second one.
Confident, but also it was just a weird vibe.
Okay.
Like no one was.
Was there something? Did you feel like there was? Obviously, you had that experience where those routines were played. Was it a bit of a kind of? Was there alarm bells going off a little bit in your head?
Well, before then, back in 2015, normally I was in the team final, the first man that goes on pommel.
Okay.
And now that was changed in 2015, and I don't know why. You know, I give someone else experience maybe. But there was no conversation. I remember we all just sat down and he was like, right, Purvis, you're not doing pommel. I was like, okay, so I'll just do 3 pieces. So I wonder as well, that was a change a year before Olympics. Again, back in my head. But you just sort of look back on these things, don't you? So the trial went well. And when he said this, I remember Jeff saying to me, bloody hell, Purvis, you'd be on that team if Sam didn't do an amazing competition. Like, he loves you to death, but, you know, it's that intense, isn't it? And you did fantastic. So, going into London, London Open, it was just a weird thing. Andre was quite quiet with me. I don't know if he was feeling the pressure as well. Yeah. Eddie wasn't saying much. I was like, it's not the vibe I was used to. You know, unfortunately, London, I didn't have the best competition, but on the scores, which later on, when I put an appeal in for not getting selected for Rio, those routines I did, so mainly like rings, vault, I think pommel horse, they were clean pieces. It was only P bars I mocked up on. But obviously opened the door then for them not to select me.
Where did you finish in that trial, Dan? Can you remember?
I can't remember, maybe 5th.
Okay.
Something like that. So it was all going well. That P bars, I messed up my cuts, took a free swing bars and finished on floor. But so I did think, kicking myself. And then, it was stressful, as you know.
I left that trial thinking, I think I've done it. And I can remember leaving and seeing Eddie and saying, not bad, right? And he went, and walked off, and I thought, oh no, you're gonna do me. I just had this sinking feeling in my stomach, and what then, Dan? When you decided to make your appeal, what formed the basis of your appeal? Was the approach right? It's the backlog of work from the World Championships last year, or even the European Championships. It's that consistency over all of that time added to the trials. Was that kind of like formed the basis of your appeal in terms of, was that what you were focusing on? Because for me, obviously, I didn't have that backlog. I had the Europeans in 2015 where you came third. I came 6th full round and won a silver medal. But then I hadn't been part of that World Championships team. I was injured at the time, didn't perform well in the trials at all. So my focus was on the 2 trials. So my focus was, right now, at this point, I feel ready and like I'm ready to go and perform. And given the numbers from the last 2 trials, based on those, I feel like I should be on the team because the maths says that I'm part of the highest scoring team. What was your basis for the appeal, Dan?
I think it was a combination of things, going back to the conversation I had with Eddie at the beginning. If you can prove your consistency and that you did in 2015 Worlds, I'm happy to put you on the team. Well, I've done that many a times that year. And the meeting itself, I mean, it's just what Jeff's told me about, but it just seemed weird. I think it was, Jeff put his hand up to argue about me being on the team. I think there was a break, come back, Jeff said, and then it's like, right, we're not speaking about Purvis anymore. He's not on. And I just think that's just so, like, unjustified. Like, it really... And that hurt me when Jeff told me that, and I thought, no, I need to put an appeal in. I've got to fight for my right, Like you say, I think, and I felt used as well, because I felt like I've really put in a lot of good results this cycle. I feel ready than ever. I've talked about maybe not having the experience in 2012 as an all-rounder to really keep that high intensity pressure. But certainly going into this Olympics, I felt like it was my Olympics to show my best routines. It really did. So it was just so heartbreaking when I got that phone call saying I wasn't on the team. So, and to be honest, mate, even when the appeal went through, I thought, I'm not on this team. Yeah. There's just no way. But the weird thing was, you know, they were averaging scores, and Jeff, when I speak to him about it, they were averaging out of the 60 competitions I think I did that year, they're averaging the worst ones, so they're nitpicking. Yeah. Or Eddie was nitpicking at the scores. That shows that you're trying to show that I was on the way down. Yeah. When really, if he wanted me on the team, he would have picked.
Yeah, you know, cherry picked.
Yeah, cherry picking. And I had so many routines and so many World Cups. Like that was his ammunition, you know. So that was really hard to hear.
What reason were you given, Dan? Like in that initial phone call, you get the phone call, you told you're not on the team. What was the reason that you were given? Did you get one? Because I rang back and said, give me an answer. Yeah, that's not good enough. And you need to tell me why. And completely fumbled, wasn't sure. Yeah. And didn't give me an answer at all.
Yeah. You know what, that phone call, it was so like, when you just said you're not on the team, I don't even think I responded. Okay, right. But I remember I asked for a meeting, personally, at the Ladies' Show just before the boys left. And I said, so Eddie, why am I not on the team? Have I not done enough? And he just said, you know, your consistency and isn't quite there. And I was like, but look, here's the scores and that. And he just said, what do you want me to tell you, Dan? You're just not on the team. It's like he couldn't give me an answer. It just wasn't.
There was no answer.
There was no answer. Yeah. There was no answer. And, you know, later on I've had meetings with the old CEO, Jane Allen, and she's, you know, alluded to the fact that there's nothing I really could have done much more to get onto that team. It was just a foregone conclusion. If that's true or not, I don't know. But, you know, I felt like if I was wanted on the team, then I would have been on the team. Or, you know what, we've talked about it as well. If you were ahead of me, I could accept it. Yeah. You know, other things as well. Yeah. I just felt like it just wasn't a fair shot at it. And with all the strangeness of that cycle coming up, people having conversations around who should be on the team. I just think my face didn't
it's very tough, isn't it, mate? Because and I agree, and I feel similarly. I think when the Olympics comes around and you this only happens every 4 years, you know, you get asked, oh, did you go to an Olympic Games? How many did you go to? And you feel embarrassed to say, and they go, why didn't you go to 2? Yeah. And you're like, well, I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses because that's all I'm ever going to sound like. You know, if I say, well, I was close, I was a reserve, but I didn't. It's tough, isn't it? It's very difficult. And actually that has brought some feelings up within me the last couple of weeks again because, you know, for me, all you ever want as an athlete is for it to feel just, you know? Yeah. And for it to, it's tough when it's hard. It's very difficult. I still find that quite challenging. It gets me quite emotional. I also, at the same time, would never change any of that. I think it's taught me some incredible life lessons. Yeah. It's formed the framework of the foundations of how I go about my life now. Fantastic. And how I live it. I would have never met Connie, maybe never had my son, right? So I'd never want to change any of that. But it's still, for me, it was very tough. But I think... Yeah, we almost bonded, didn't we, over being in the same situation, although we were both trying to get the same spot. Yeah. I think my feelings afterwards were, and this is never, I think in those situations what people have to understand is it's never a personal thing against an athlete. No, never. Because the athlete doesn't pick themselves. You can't pick yourself. No. Yeah. So everybody deserves that spot. But for me, it was, the maths just didn't make sense. And I don't feel like I was ever given an honest answer. And it felt like, the face just didn't fit. And I think I was putting 2 and 2 together of conversations I'd overheard, similarly to you, of people talking about what routines am I going to do at the trial in 2 weeks, at the for friendly comp in 2 weeks against France, before the trials have even taken place. And I'm looking going, what? Yeah. Why are you having that conversation like you're already in the team? Like, what's going on? So, for me, very tough, mate. But, you know, I'm sure looking back, the same as me, you probably wouldn't change your career, no? Like, no, you'd never change it. And
you know, it was heartbreaking.
It was meant to be, right? Like, it is what it is. Like,
these things happen, and you know what? You see that it's elite sport, isn't it? And then this is probably one of the reasons I enjoy recreational so much. Because it's not that pressure. The kids get to learn what I think is the best sport in the world, gymnastics. You just have fun, and it's great. But you know, I'm glad I went down the path I went down. Of course, I think as well. I didn't realise during that cycle how much people would watch my gymnastics. So when I wasn't in the team, and I'm not really one to read comments and that, but there was so many comments saying, you know, yourself, other gymnasts that haven't been in the team. But I just read the ones about me. And they were breaking down, well, no, Purvis has done this, Purvis has done that. And I didn't realise how many people cared, other than my immediate circle and my, you know, club in Southport. I just didn't realise. So for me, that gave me, a bit of condolences.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, it wasn't all for because you feel used. I felt used going around doing all the World Cup circuits, and much of I benefit from it. GB benefited from it as well.
Of course, yeah.
So, that gave me some condolences. But to be honest, mate, I couldn't train properly, and I felt really sorry for Frank because I knew going into the next cycle, Frank really wants to hit that Olympics. I wanted to be that training partner for him, but for the first 6 months, mate, my head just wasn't in it.
Yeah.
I was depressed. I really was. It was tough. And then me and you were sort of that age. I felt like we were the Ruslan, rest in peace. I mean, what a lovely man he was. But we were the older ones, and I think I thought it was good. We were sort of setting the example of like, this is the numbers, this is what you do. But I know you had higher aspirations, but for me, mine was just to sort of help Frank and finish at the Commonwealth Games for Scotland. And I got to finish, fortunately, on my own terms, and I got to prove that I'm not out yet. It's 2018, I managed to finish third at the British Champs. So when Eddie's told me your consistency's gone down, I'm like, well, it's 2 years later, and I'm still proving pretty good gymnastics. And I wasn't working with Andre then. I was, the centralised was gone for me, so that was different as well. But that was a happy 2 times with me, Frank, and Jeff as well. And then so finishing with Scotland, getting a team medal with the boys, Hamish, Kelvin, Liam Davey, Frank. Oh, mate, it was amazing. And being a captain of that team was fantastic. And then finishing on floor, that was my last international performance, to get a bronze medal, and seeing Frank get his medal. And people, I was like, oh, mate, you know what? I couldn't ask for a better finish. And I'm glad that I didn't just finish after 16 like I wanted to.
And to be honest, mate, for a time, I remember very clearly maybe 2017. Maybe 2018, being in me and you sharing a room, and you're right, we know what's coming. If the face didn't fit in 2016, it ain't going to fit in 2020. So we know what's coming and what's around the corner. But I clearly remember feeling like we were on a training camp, and it felt to me like you just needed someone to say to you, Dan, we still want you to be part of the team, and we're going to help you, and we're going to support you. And it just felt like you were a bit... I looked at you and I thought, this guy just needs someone to tell him, like, come on, Dan, you can still fight. Because I think you'd lost that fight, and I still had it. So I was up for the fight still. But there was we'd be at training camps and everyone would just ignore you. A bit like Dan Keaton's towards the end. And I'd be like, what's going on? This guy has done so much for all of you guys. Like the 16 major championship medals is like held it together under extreme pressure when we've all thrown it away at times. If you're going to treat him like this at the end, what are you going to treat me like? Because I've done nowhere near what this guy's done in his career. So I think that watching that, firstly, it made me incredibly sad and frustrated and angry with the people at the time, but it prepared me for what was to come for me, and I think I was able to handle it a bit better. Now, it's great that you personally was able to go on and have the experience you did in 2018, and it makes me so happy hearing that was such a positive experience for you at the end, and you got to finish on your own terms. And I know we've gone into like the second part of the career, but we had to, we have to, big things, aren't they, that happen in your lives. We've got to talk about it, but what a career you had, mate, and for you to finish like that, and then do the Superstars of Gymnastics.
Oh, mate,
like, what a cool event to finish on, and
dude.
then like all of us just running on, lifting you up in the air. It was just really cool.
That was like that. Like
I'm back in the O2 where we won the medal in London.
It was a dream finish. You know that, and I look at so many athletes, and I just wish they could get the send off or end on their own terms. And you know what, mate, I was so made up for you. Just like the struggles you've gone through physically, you mentally talked about it as well. Such a fantastic role model. You just carried on to the end, and you got the finish on your own terms, getting that gold medal at the British. I remember Champion telling me, that's how made up he was for you. Like, obviously, he's one of my best friends and a great friend of yours. So, I was so happy to see you get that. And I would say as well, during that time, 2018, Baz Colley, he helped me quite a lot as well. He was coming to help with Frank in Southport, and he cheered me on as well. But really good. But I mean, without Andre, I did feel lost. We worked so closely together, and obviously Christian had retired. This is a funny story. I'll tell you this. It's a funny story. So I actually did do one more competition for Superstars Gymnastics, and it was the London Open. I remember I prepared, but I was mainly doing it to try and help Frank.
Right, okay.
Give him a training partner and that. Anyway, do my high bar, I'm choking up. I see Christian commentating. He's eating a pizza, he just waves at me like that, and I'm like... I'm so far out of this. Christian's eating a pizza and I'm doing it. About to do a
Doing a floor
6-piece
routine in my
competition.
leotard, what's going on?
I was like, I need to get out of this. Oh, it was so funny. So yeah, that was an eye opener for me. Like, okay, and it was hard for Jeff to accept. You know, he didn't want me to finish.
Of course,
you know,
and to carry on forever.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but my mum and dad are like, maybe you can still do it. Maybe you can go to the Olympics, and you just know.
I think my mum was fed up of watching me being carried off in a stretcher, mate.
Oh, mate.
She was fed up of
Bless
that.
you, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was you know, you have to give up on the death of the dream, don't you? And a new identity. And that took a while, but for me, like I say, I've had great support network. I can go in, finish the Superstars Gymnastics, already having my gymnastic business, which I would, you know, employ to anyone, have something on
ready.
Yeah, because once that identity of gymnastics or any elite athlete is gone.
And you were wrong, mate, right? You used to tell us that the only thing you'd ever do is work in McDonald's, and you've got a successful business of your own that you've built on the back of an incredible career. And for me, I think, you know, everybody that listens to this podcast and maybe knows you or is a fan of yours will know what an incredible human being you are, what an amazing teammate. But outside of that, look, gymnastics is important, and this is the thing that I probably learned through 2016 and that difficult period that we went through. Like, gymnastics is important, but there are other things in life that far outweigh that. And I think being a good person and doing the right thing is one of those. And you have always been somebody for me that has been a person that's shown me exactly how to do that. And so thank you for everything that you did, mate, for not just for me as a role model for me and somebody that inspired me, and everything you've been as a friend, but for the job you did for British gymnastics and gymnastics in this country, because I don't think you get told enough how incredible that was. And you probably aren't privy to hearing the conversations that other people have about you when you're not there. And I think the mark of a person is how do people talk about you when you're not in the room, and everybody only has amazing things to say about you, mate. So thank you for coming on today and sharing your story. It's been an absolute pleasure, and yeah, absolute legend.
Oh, mate, well, thank you very much. It's been an honour. Cheers, buddy.